Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first in our exhibitor education series of webcasts here called the Space Selection Essentials and Important Dates. I'm sure I've met and spoken with a number of you, but in case you didn't know, my name is Celeste Books. I am the Membership Engagement Manager here, Director here at NAFEM headquarters in Chicago. With me is Kelsey Kwasniak, the Exhibits Manager, and Kendall Reynolds, our Exhibits Coordinator. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Whether this is your first show or you're a seasoned industry professional, we hope that we're going to go through some information here that you guys will all find useful as you plan for a successful show. Before I turn everything over to Kelsey, I'm going to go over just a couple more general reminders and some information here. As noted, this is the first of our series of webcasts. We have I think 3 or 4 of them all planned out for the next couple months. You can find those on the show website, which is www.thenafemshow.org. We have an exhibitor resource section where you can find them and register. You can register for them all at one time. So please go on there. Our show dates, which we are all very intimately aware with, but in case you know, February 11th through the 13th, 2027, back in Orlando. Back to a show pattern of Thursday through Saturday, as opposed to the Wednesday through Friday from 25. After the 2027 show, it'll also go back to that Wednesday through Friday, but for the 27 show, Thursday through Saturday, it'll all kick off on the Wednesday evening with our kickoff party. So as we're going through, as you're taking in all the information, if you have questions, please use that the Q&A function, which should be at the bottom of your screen there. We're going to try to get through as many as we can. We're going to probably try to answer the most general that would apply to the most amount of people. If you have really, really specific questions in terms of booth layout and that sort of thing, just send an email to info@thenafemshow.org and they will address those more on a case-by-case basis. But depending on time, we're going to get through as many as we possibly can. And with that, these are being recorded. You're all here live. But if you need to pass this on to colleagues that are helping to facilitate the show, or you want to refer to them later, they're all going to be posted on the website. So if you miss anything, not to worry, everything will go on the website once we're done. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey so she can go through all of our space selection essentials.
Great. Thanks, Celeste. We're going to go ahead and just go off video as we're navigating through our slide deck here. But first, again, as Celeste mentioned, welcome to our first webinar for the NAFEM show for 2027. So excited to have everyone live here today, but also for those that might be watching this recording or watching with their colleagues after. So as you can see from our agenda today, we are going to be reviewing some key space selection communications, some of which have already been sent out. So we will review our floor plan, of course, most important, and also how to prepare for space selection, what to expect the day of space selection, our show rules and regulations, and of course, some critical dates. And finally, we will finish with some Q&A. As Celeste mentioned, we leave plenty of time for Q&A, but if there's very specific items that you're not sure of as you're planning your booth space or getting ready for space selection, our team is more than happy to answer those questions offline, via email, on a call, as needed, depending on what your needs are. So as you can see, we have a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and get started. So beginning with space selection email communications. On August 11th, earlier this month, your company was sent an email to your trade show contact on file. Now, this email that was sent on August 11th contained your company's space selection date and time, along with the specific Zoom link to select your space, as well as our online floor plan link, which is also on our show website. So note that if you haven't yet received this email, please contact our team at info@thenafemshow.org. We're happy to resend this information, but this is already sent if you're the trade show contact listening right now, or maybe it's someone else on your team. Do make sure you have that email in hand on your email so that you know the instructions of what date, time, in Central Time, of course, of when to join, as well as the specific Zoom link, as the link is not the same for every company. Now, please take into account, again, as I mentioned with the time zone, if you're in another time zone or if you're international, take that into account so that you're calling or joining the Zoom within that central time zone. And again, if you need it resent, please contact info@thenafemshow.org. Now, as we have sent out this email communication, so you know when you're selecting, the next steps are really space selection, which is coming up starting next week. So space selection will take place over the next 2 weeks. Starting next week on August 24th is when companies that have 200 or more priority points will be selecting. And then the week of August 31st is really for members with less than 200 points, any of our associate members that are eligible to exhibit, and non-members. So do pay attention to that. We always note in our rules and regulations, in our communications, that it is 2 weeks of space selection based on priority points, based on your membership, or if you're a non-member. Now, keep in mind there might be multiple companies that are within the same point category, and in that case, we've done a random drawing to determine that assignment order if you are one company with the same points as another company. Associate members and non-members are assigned space in the order their contract was received after all members with priority points have been assigned. So that's the order. This is also referenced, as we'll get into a little bit later today, in our rules and regulations, really the order that we assign space. Now, as a friendly reminder, if you want to review your priority points, you can always do so on your NAFEM member dashboard by logging into on www.nafem.org, not the show website, but our main association website. And you can sign into the membership dashboard there to see your priority points. Now, as a friendly reminder, because we sent out the email with your date and time to select space on August 11th, you'll want to make sure you RSVP to confirm your company's participation for space selection. So that link to RSVP is provided in that specific email that we sent on August 11th. So again, if you don't have it, please make sure to let us know so that we can get that over to the appropriate contact. And finally, very important date here to take note of, we'll review again at the end, but as a really important reminder, after space selection concludes at the end of August, early September, the week of September 14th, your trade show contact, if that's you or someone else on your team, will receive an email confirming your exhibit space with your booth number, your booth size, as well as your invoice. So do keep in mind that's coming the week of September 14th that you'll receive shortly after you then select space. Do make sure that you're reviewing the confirmation that week of the 14th, along with your booth location, the online floor plan, and do notify our team if there's any kind of discrepancies. All right, so now we're going to navigate our floor plan. If you ever need to find our floor plan, you can always go to thenafemshow.org, hover over Exhibit, and then select Floor Plan. I highly recommend bookmarking this page once you have the link so that you can easily access our floor plan the day of your company's space selection. Keep in mind, this floor plan is going to be live updated throughout every day of space selection, so things can change within just a matter of minutes. So highly recommend double checking. Now let's get everybody more familiar with our floor plan in Orlando. Now, as Celeste mentioned, we're back in Orlando, back in the exact same north and south exhibit halls. So if you're familiar and you've been with NAFEM for many years, then you are familiar with this exhibit hall, but we're going to review again just so that everyone is aware of all of the features on our floor. So starting at the bottom here, we have our two entrances on the left and the right here, two main entrances. There are no more than two main entrances, and I will get into that in just a second. I know that sometimes there's confusion on if in the back of the hall here, if this is an entrance. It is not. It would be an exit only. So attendees are only going to be coming from this direction at the bottom here. These two entrances. Other important things for you to note is that the entrance here on the left is going to be closest to the direction of attendees who are staying at the Hyatt Regency in Orlando. And the entrance on the right is closest to the skywalk from the Hilton, Orlando. Only these two entrances are going to be used during show hours. Also, registration and our shuttle drop-off area is going to be located down here. You can't see it here, but it'll be down right outside the exhibit hall. Also note that food and beverage areas are going to be marked throughout the floor plan in orange, and they are subject to change. They're here, food and beverage here. We have multiple stations in the middle, as well as in the back of the floor plan. Also, you'll see our bathrooms marked both in the hall and right outside the hall via our icons here. Next, we're going to review several of our show featured areas, and starting with our NAFEM booth in the back of the floor here. So the NAFEM booth is marked here in green in booth 1490. The NAFEM booth is going to be a place on the show floor where attendees and exhibitors can stop to ask questions about NAFEM, the NAFEM show, to network, or even just to take a break. There will be plenty of seating and the ability to charge your devices. And once again, our channel partners, Cefesa, FCSI, FIDA, and MOFSI are co-locating within the NAFEM booth again. So all of our channel partners, as well as NAFEM, will be represented here in this space. We also are going to have 3 lounges on the show floor marked in green, one in the back here, one up front on the left-hand side here, and one on the right front side here. Now, these lounges are going to have really an opportunity with furniture as well as opportunities for people to charge their phones, take a break, relax, and network with other attendees. Next, we'll review our What's Hot, What's Cool area, which we're bringing back again, once again this year. Very exciting. So keep in mind that eligible innovations, if you're an exhibitor that would like to still submit for What's Hot, What's Cool, eligible innovations must have been introduced to the market after the NAFEM Show 2025 and represent a substantial update to an existing product or be a working prototype that has been tested and shows the potential to reduce or avoid costs. To be considered for What's Hot, What's Cool, each product needs to demonstrate a measurable cost containment benefit to operators in one or more key areas, including direct cost savings, efficiency improvements, or future cost avoidance. Now, some general information about What's Hot, What's Cool is that our online application is going to be available on the show website and sent to all exhibitors later this month. So do be on the lookout for that so that you can submit to be considered for our What's Hot, What's Cool area. Another thing to keep in mind is that there is a $250 non-refundable application fee that applies to each product submitted with a limit of 3 submissions per company. Now, space is limited for our What's Hot, What's Cool area, so not all eligible products will be selected. So do make sure to submit and really just put your company in the best position to showcase anything that's new. Next, let's go ahead and take a look in the back here near our U.S. Culinary Open that we're also bringing back this year. Very exciting. Now, the NAFEM show is excited to welcome the U.S. Culinary Open back. Again, a competition for professional chefs competing for the title of U.S. Culinary Open champion. The competition is a modern and true reflection of the diversity of skilled culinarians in the U.S., with 12 of America's most talented professional chefs competing in a 2-day competition. Judges are renowned and chefs will be competing for first, second, and third place. And just watch our show website, thenafemshow.org, for more updates on the Culinary Open, as it'll be definitely exciting and we're happy to have it back for the second time. Now let's go ahead and go back to the floor plan. Right next to our NAFEM booth is at center stage. Also right next door, similar to last year or last show in Atlanta, this is the NAFEM show. It's the NAFEM show's educational stage on our show floor where the hottest topics and emerging trends are going to be highlighted. Keep in mind, there is going to be a theater sound system in this area, so just take note of that if you're interested in selecting space near here. Finally, a few more other key areas to highlight here on our floor plan. We are going to have 4 cleanup areas in orange throughout the hall. They're very small here up against the wall, in the back here, in the front here on the far left, in the front on the far right. So we'll have 4 cleanup areas in orange throughout the hall. The cleanup areas are going to be set up with a sink, soap, paper towels to wash and rinse dishes, along with a garbage can and a grease barrel. So again, another factor if you're selecting space, if you plan to cook to demonstrate your equipment, then you'll just need to take that into account if you need to be close to a cleanup station. And last but not least, of course, new this year is our first time exhibitor area and our technology startup area. Now, if you are eligible to exhibit within these spaces, if you're a first time exhibitor or you qualify as a technology/startup company, then you will be notified in advance of your space selection appointment if you're eligible. So you can also pick space in this area. Now, while we're on our floor plan here, I'll zoom out so everyone can see the full floor plan. The next thing we're going to review is our different types of booth sizes. Now, again, this is very important as you're planning out what booth space you're looking to have. As a friendly reminder, you may have contracted for one space, but maybe you're looking at something a little bit larger or a different size orientation. You're more than welcome to make that adjustment during your space selection appointment without any penalty. So do take note of this so that you're planning your space according to what you're envisioning for your booth. So as I zoom in here, you're seeing all these different colors and they represent different sizes of booths. So first, if we're looking for any kind of inline booths, really that's any kind of the greens, purples, blues, and the yellows, they can be selected as individual booths or combined to make a longer inline booth. The space in between the booths here, if I zoom in more, are service aisles. So what that means, it's where utilities are placed and hidden if you have an inline booth so that it doesn't take up space in your booth. Keep in mind that an inline booth never faces a service aisle. So if I am this booth here, I know I face this booth instead of the booth right behind me that is on the back side of my drape. Now again, just want to review here. You can kind of see it, but I'll zoom in a little bit more. Our blue spaces are 10 feet by 12 feet. Our green spaces are 10 by 10, so a standard booth space. Our yellow booth spaces are 10 by 15 feet. And over here, our pink spaces are 20 feet wide at the ends, and they are 10 feet wide in between. So if you're looking for a 20-foot wide booth, the spaces you really want to be looking are these purplish pink ones on our floor plan. Now, all of these are in 20-foot wide blocks, so you can combine them to create a split island, an island space, which means you're open on 4 sides. So that means cutting these booths, giving yourself an island space. Or if you're looking for a peninsula, which means you're open on 3 sides and you have neighbors on the back side of you, which we'll get into more detail a little bit later. Now, if you're looking for a 30-foot wide booth, really anywhere else outside of the pink booths, so that is the blue and the blue, the green and the yellow, that could be blue and yellow, green and yellow, all of those combinations are 30 feet wide. So what that means is, let's say you're interested and you want a 30 by 50 peninsula booth space. So this is a 30-foot wide block. And so a way that I could combine this space is it's 30 foot wide. So I'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and across. That would give you that 30 by 50 peninsula space, meaning you'd have neighbors on your back side. Or if you wanted an island space, I could cut 2 booths behind you, and that would allow you to be open on all 4 sides. A little bit later, I'll get into some of those fees. If you want to be an island, you do pay for aisle or corner fees, depending on what kind of space you're building. But again, those are some of those options if you're looking for a 30-foot wide space. Now, in another example, let's say over here in these 2 blues, it's the same exact example here. They're 30 feet wide, even though they're both 10 by 12 booth spaces. What that really means is that our service aisles are sometimes smaller and they're sometimes larger. But no matter what, they add up to being 30 foot wide. So just keep that in mind depending on what kind of space you're looking for. Now, an important rule to remember as you're planning your booth space, the dimensions, that the booth width must be less than or equal to the booth length for anything that's larger than 600 square feet. So what does that mean exactly? That means, let's say you want a 30 by 70 booth. What that means is that it needs to be taller versus wider. So if you wanted a 30 by 70 booth, maybe you're thinking, I want to take all of these booths up here and have a shorter booth, have a longer booth, but it's not as deep. Unfortunately, NAFEM can't accommodate that kind of booth configuration, so it needs to be taller. So that would mean a 30 by 70 would be 30 feet wide here, going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and going across. So you can have the booth be oriented this way, but you can't have it oriented where it is so short, so it's not as deep, but it is very long, because unfortunately that doesn't create the best experience for everyone to exhibit behind you. So just keep that in mind depending on what booth configuration you're planning. And again, if you have any specific questions regarding your company's booth size or what you're planning, what you're envisioning, please contact our exhibits team either on the phone or via email. We'll have that information later in the slides here. Contact us and we're happy to chat through what's the best solution for your company. Now, another important thing to call attention to on this floor plan here is in red, you're seeing all of these aisles in between the booths. Now, everything in red are our no freight aisles. This is very important as you're planning construction of your booth as we get closer to the show, is that the aisles need to be kept clear of all freight during move in and move out in order to keep all the pathways clear for forklifts throughout the show floor during move in. So as you're planning space, maybe you're hiring an exhibitor appointed contractor, maybe you're working with our official show contractor, Freeman. But if you're planning your space and you have multiple booths or a very large booth, keep in mind your team is going to have to make sure that all of the freight is clear. This is both for safety purposes and just for all of the freight we have at our show. All right, so now we've reviewed our floor plan. And again, as we're preparing for space selection, as you're preparing for your space selection appointment, highly recommend navigating that floor plan. We have it on our show website right now. Take a look, start to plan, think of those backup choices so that you're going through and you feel very prepared during your live appointment time. In addition to practicing going through the floor plan, make sure that you're familiar, as we'll continue to detail in this webinar today, of what kind of booth you're looking for, an inline booth, a corner booth, a peninsula, an island. We'll talk through all of those options and then you're able to decide what makes the most sense for your team. Or if you already have a set kind of build for your booth, then you already kind of know what you're looking for. Keep in mind that our floor plan is going to be live at all times, and it is going to reflect the space that has been selected to date, as we're renting spaces every few minutes. So with space selection starting on August 24th and ending on September 4th, our floor plan is going to be constantly changing during that 2-week time frame. So do keep this in mind and continuously look at the floor plan. Also, make sure to check availability of any booths that you're interested in the day before, hour before, and even a few minutes before. As you know, things can change every few minutes on the floor plan. So it's good to be prepared before your appointment, looking at what choices are the best for your team. Another thing to keep in mind is that after you select your space, it is important to keep an eye on the floor plan to ensure you still like your space as the booths develop around you. So keep in mind that NAFEM does not notify you if a competitor chooses a booth space near you or if an island booth that builds up to 16 feet tall selects next to your booth. So if you're unhappy with your location at any point, even after your space selection, you can always hop back on Zoom or contact our team via phone or email, and we can take a look at what's currently available later on during space selection and move you based on what your needs are. So again, continue to monitor that floor plan. All right, now on your actual space selection appointment day, please make sure that you're joining us via the Zoom link that we provided in the email that we sent your trade show contact on August 11th. That is the link that you will need to access for your appointment. And the first step is going to be once you click on that link at the time of your appointment, you are automatically going to enter our waiting room. Now, based on your scheduled time, our team will admit you to our main meeting room to then be assigned to one of our team members to assist you in picking your space. So just make sure to be prompt when joining Zoom, as companies are scheduled just a couple minutes apart, and really any delay can have a domino effect on following companies. I always recommend joining maybe 5 minutes before your actual appointment time because then our team can see you're in the waiting room and you're right on time to select your space. I cannot stress enough about being prepared when you join Zoom. So if you have multiple team members joining the Zoom to pick your space, make sure you're all prompt to join at the same time so that we can assign all of you to the one breakout room with our team members to finalize your selection. So if you have 3 to 5 other team members that also need to help make your selection, make sure you're all joining at the same time so we can make sure that you're all together to select. The exhibits team member will confirm your booth number and booth size while on Zoom with you, and any additional charges, such as corner fees, which are $300 per corner fee, or an aisle fee. So your team member, depending on how you're building out your space, will confirm what those exact fees are going to be after space selection in your invoice. Now, once the booth is assigned, it will appear online as assigned within 1 to 2 minutes. When you see it live on the floor plan, please ensure that you're verifying that your booth location and your booth size is correct. In the unlikely event it is not correct, please rejoin the Zoom immediately and we can correct it as soon as possible. And again, as a reminder, the last step is really that your company's trade show contact will receive a confirmation and an invoice the week of September 14th. Now we're going to review some common rules and regulations as well as some common rule violations. Again, this is intended to allow you to really review this in advance so that you're adhering to all NAFEM rules and regulations. And really, it allows you to be set up for success on site so that our team isn't saying to change something on site, but you're making this accommodation in advance in your booth design. Now, here we have linked our NAFEM show rules and regulations. These are also included in a copy of your contract that you received when you submitted. But you can also find these on our website, thenafemshow.org, under that exhibit drop-down that we just looked at for our floor plan. I highly recommend printing out our rules and regulations and really reading through them just to ensure your company abides by all NAFEM show rules, making sure if there's any questions you're unsure of, depending on the style of booth you have, to let us know because we're always happy to clarify those rules. And again, I want to remind everyone here to continue to check the floor plan between August and the show to see changes to neighboring booths and areas. There are going to be adjustments made to the floor plan, and it's important to understand your exhibit space prior to arriving on site. So I'm going to take a few minutes now to explain our booth construction rules. They are strictly enforced on site for the sole purpose of really ensuring all exhibitors have a clear sight line within 10 feet of a neighboring booth. And the reason why we enforce is so that every exhibitor has the best possible experience at the NAFEM show. So since we have a limited amount of time, I'm only going to review some of the most common rule violations on show site, but we also have a helpful rules and regulations review video linked here in the slide deck, but also we will provide this on our show website. So let's begin with inline booths, if this is a booth that you're interested in having. Now, the most common rule violation we see with an inline booth, meaning you have neighbors on either side of your booth, is really when you have a display or a product in front of your booth, in the very front of the space, that is taller than 4 feet. Any items in your booth that are taller than 4 feet cannot be within 5 feet from the aisle when you are within 10 feet of a neighboring exhibitor. And again, the reason why is that blocks the line of sight with your neighbor. So we can't see your neighbor's display because you have something displayed in the front of your space that is blocking them. So for example, the NAFEM floor managers may ask you to either remove or push this item that is too tall to the back of your booth, so long as it does not impede 5 feet from the aisle when you're within 10 feet of a neighboring exhibitor. This ensures just a clear line of sight, so again, you're not blocking any of your neighbors. The second most common inline booth violation is having a display or a backdrop in the back of your space that is taller than 8 feet. So just note, if you select an inline booth or even a corner booth, if you have neighbors on either side of you, or even just on one side, you can't have anything in the back of your space over 8 feet in height. So if it goes over, and it'll be easy to see because we'll have 8-foot drape running along all of the inline booths, then we will ask you to either shorten it, take it down, or remove it completely. So just keep that in mind. Nothing over 8 feet in the back of your space. Another important thing to note if you're looking at an inline space is that if you're an exhibitor who manufactures walk-in coolers, refrigerators, and freezers, that you're required to purchase a booth as a 10 by 15. That's our yellow booths on the floor plan. The reason being is based on the equipment that you plan to showcase in your space, that let's say it's a walk-in cooler, a refrigerator, a freezer, it really ensures that it can fit in your booth space, but still be 5 feet from the aisle, which is challenging with a smaller 10 by 10 space, a kind of a standard booth space. So keep in mind, if you're one of those manufacturers, you definitely want to look at a 10 by 15 space as a minimum so that you have enough depth to fit that equipment in there. Now we'll review peninsula booths, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So a peninsula booth, by definition, is open to an aisle on three sides. So it's not open on all of the sides. That would be an island, which we'll review in a second. But a peninsula is open on three sides, and then you have a back wall where you have neighbors on the other side of you. And specifically, you have inline neighbors on the other side of you. As I'll get into in just a moment, if you have another island on the other side of you, that would make you a split island. So the rules are a little different. So again, peninsula, meaning you're open on three sides and you have an inline neighbor on each side of you, behind your back wall. So as a reminder, if you have a peninsula space, you're allowed to have a height allowance up to 16 feet. That's the center portion of your back wall, any kind of hanging sign, ID sign, you're allowed to have in your space up to 16 feet. And then your hanging sign itself can't be taller than 20 feet in height from the floor to the top of the sign. Now, in peninsula booths, the most common rule violation we often see is that any display fixtures are over 4 feet in height and placed within 10 feet of a neighboring exhibit. Now, what that means is, as you can see in this diagram here, the challenge is that if you have a back wall and it goes all the way across, if you're a peninsula and you have inline neighbors behind you, the wall needs to be cut out in a way, designed in a way that it is open up to 5 feet on each side. So it's essentially kind of a cutout back wall. This allows us to see your neighbors behind you, and it allows everyone to have a clear line of sight. Now, we'll get into islands next, but keep in mind, if you wish to have a back wall that goes all the way across, then you will need to make sure that you contract and have an island space. So reviewing island booth spaces, the most common violation is really any display fixture over 16 feet in height. So that's if you have anything that is on the floor, not rigged, but on the floor that is taller than 16 feet in height, it would not be allowed. It'd be asked to either be reduced in height to 16 feet, depending on what it is, or removed out of your space. And of course, that your hanging sign cannot be rigged any taller than 20 feet from the floor to the top of the sign. So as a reminder, if you're thinking, I want to be open on all four sides, I want attendees to come into my booth on all four sides, then that means you do need to make sure that you select an island booth space, to which there may be either an aisle fee, which is $5,000, or a corner fee, which is $300 per corner. So just keep this in mind based on what you're envisioning for your booth display. Now, as we're talking about common booth violations, this of course then brings up the conversation about our booth diagram submission. Really, the intention with booth diagram submission is to prevent any kind of those on-site headaches. So check your floor plan, check your booth rendering, send that to our team so that we can review it in advance. Now, of course, if you are a manufacturer who makes walk-in coolers, refrigerators, and freezers, if you're a peninsula, an island space, or if you received a written booth violation from our team in 2025, then you are required to submit a diagram to us via the Exhibitor Resource Center by November 18th. Now, this diagram form will be available starting September 23rd next month in the Exhibitor Resource Center, and then it's due by November 18th. Now, if for any reason you're thinking, well, I'm not a manufacturer of walk-in coolers, refrigerators, or freezers, I don't have a peninsula space, I don't have an island, and I didn't get a booth violation notice. You might think maybe I don't need to submit a diagram, but we always recommend submitting it to us in advance if you have any questions. If you're unsure if something's too tall in your booth, or if something doesn't look correct, or you're not sure if you're aligning with NAFEM show rules and regulations, we highly recommend submitting it to our team. You can always send it to info@thenafemshow.org email, and we're happy to take a look and just give you that peace of mind so we can say, yes, this is approved, it aligns with our rules and regulations, and then your team can breathe that sigh of relief when you get on site and you know everything looks the way it's supposed to look and you don't need to make any changes. As a friendly reminder, our team will be walking the floor on site, so we do make sure that you're aligning with our show rules and regulations. Again, important for us to review some very key critical dates here. Again, highly recommend reviewing this after or taking a picture right now. These are really important dates. Also on our show website, first starting with space selection. If you're a company with 200 plus priority points, you're selecting in that first week of August 24th. And if you have less than 200 points, if you're an associate member or a non-member, you're selecting the week of August 31st into early September. Next, of course, is September 23rd. Our Exhibitor Resource Center will have additional resources available, including our exhibitor registration, our Freeman Exhibitor Services Manual, the Orange County Convention Center order forms, including utility order forms, and more, including our diagram submission form. So be ready for that on September 23rd so that your team can really start executing some key pieces so that your team is show ready for February. Of course, October 20th is when your final exhibit space balance is going to be due. Now, just to review earlier, we said we would send updated invoices the week of September 14th. So that means between September 14th and October 20th, your final balance will be due. So do take note of that date. And of course, finally, as mentioned, November 18th is the deadline to submit your booth diagram. If at any point, though, after November 18th, you say, I would like the NAFEM show team to look at my booth diagram, you can send them at any time, and we're happy to look at those. Now, as we get to our Q&A, I'm going to invite Celeste and Kendall to come back on camera, and we're happy to start fielding some of those questions.
All right, great job, Kelsey. We do have a couple questions here, and if you have more, just as a reminder, if you have really specific booth layout questions, those can just go right to the show team at info@thenafemshow.org, and they'll answer those directly. That team will answer them directly on a one-on-one basis. Okay, I missed the deadline to RSVP for online space selection. I just submitted our RSVP, and we want to participate in space selection. Do I need to be concerned about participating at our specific time?
Great question. So don't be concerned. Do send us an email. Email's on the screen here, info@thenafemshow.org. We can either resend the RSVP link, or if you can just tell us you plan to be present for your space selection appointment, then we can mark that in our system.
Okay. Oh, here's one I can answer. I missed the cost. What's the cost to apply for what's hot, what's cool? And does someone need to man that booth, or is it just a gallery? The cost is $250 per product, up to 3 products per company. Space is limited, so not all products will be selected, but it is not meant to be manned. It's meant to be more of a gallery setting where attendees can kind of walk and look and touch without having personnel there. So they will be directed back to the booth if they wanted to find out more about the product or see it in full action, or talk to an exhibitor about it in more detail. But good question. Kind of moving it around here. What if you need a large booth? If a block is 30 feet wide, can we cross an aisle to be 50 by 70? What is the dimension of the aisle?
That's a great question. You absolutely can go bigger. So if you're thinking about, let's say, how to block your space, it's 30-foot wide blocks. So great memory. Glad to hear that people were listening. But then across each aisle is 10 feet plus that next 30 wide block. So what that means is that you can go 30 plus 30 plus 10. So that would be 70. You can go 70 wide and then up. And again, if you're looking for a very specific configuration, we can, of course, accommodate it. We know sometimes people are looking at a 40-foot wide or a 50-foot wide. We can certainly accommodate it, but do keep in mind that that means that we have to cut more space. So that means you would incur more of an aisle fee, corner fee charge. So it really depends on the exact dimensions. But if you're staying within that 30-foot wide block or a 70 wide block, depending on, again, the configuration, then you don't incur as many fees. Of course, another thing that can happen during space selection is, let's say, based on how space is cut, you see an already built out booth, then we would normally only charge corner fees if you're looking for an island space. It really just kind of depends on how some of the space breaks up once people start cutting into it.
Okay. When should we join the Zoom call, and can more than one person be on that space selection call? Which is
Great question. So highly recommend joining at least 5 minutes before. And as mentioned, you would enter our Zoom waiting room. So you're not going to be let in right away. But if we see that you're in the queue and we see that you're the contact person, we can kind of match that up with your company and say, okay, that person is in the queue. They're getting ready for their appointment. If you have multiple team members and you're not all using the same Zoom, let's say in your office, make sure that you're giving that link to all of your individual team members, have them all join. And then once we let you as the main trade show contact in, you can always say, hey, I have this person and this person and this person. Can you let them in as well? And we will, and we'll assign you all to one room. But I recommend telling all your team members 5 minutes before, because then that way we can make sure everybody gets in and then you're still on time to select your space.
Okay. Can we access the Exhibitor Resource Center before that September date?
Yes, so actually, our Exhibitor Resource Center is available right now. So if you're the trade show contact for your company, you're able to log in using your NAFEM member dashboard credentials to log in. That is available. The main link is on our NAFEM show website under Exhibit. So if you're the trade show contact, you're able to access that right now. Right now in there, we have some of our marketing tools. We have our meeting space request form, your invoice that you currently have before space selection. But a lot more of these resources, as mentioned, are going to be available in September.
Okay. Who's the show service provider?
So our general services contractor partner is Freeman. We've worked with them for the last several shows. And then for utilities, which we know is often a big question in the Orlando Convention Center, it is the Orange County Utilities team. So it's their own in-house team.
Okay. Maybe this will be addressed on future calls, but have any rules changed about food serving and alcohol serving?
Good question. So, as we go between different cities, of course, those regulations can change based on what the facility tells us. Orlando, we were last there in 2023, so it'll be more comparable to that show. Of course, more of those details will be provided once we have all of those order forms together on September 23rd. So, if you are doing any kind of sampling, whether that's alcohol, non-alcoholic beverages, or food, do pay attention to when that form becomes available in the Resource Center on September 23rd.
Kelsey, can you just speak to if someone misses their Zoom appointment or if they're not sure if they RSVP'd, can they still jump on that call at the time that they're given?
Yes, absolutely. So, if anyone misses their appointment, because anyone that has an appointment has submitted a contract and has submitted 50% deposit of their contracted space. So, our team still selects space on your behalf. Because again, you submitted contract, you paid for half of the space. So we select based on your preferences in your contract, and we usually send an email to you in that moment saying, we missed you during your space selection appointment, but we selected based on your preferences. At any point throughout that day, it'll be the same Zoom link, so you can always join, hop on, or say, actually, I'd like to move. You can let us know based on what's available. We will move you. But if you miss your actual appointment time during that real time, we will still make sure to pick a space for you based on what we think is the best with your preferences.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take this one. For space selection and priority points, is the most up-to-date Excel spreadsheet, in fact, on the website dated 2026? Are there no updates since? So the only reason that was the stopping point is because those are the points that are the space draw selection times are based on. Companies will obviously earn points throughout the year, but all points earned after that point will go towards space selection for the NAFEM show 2029 and beyond. And things like committee participation and social, not social, but CFSP, or things like that. Those are tallied at the end of the year based on the year of engagement. So that's why those don't get tallied until the end of the year. I don't see a lot more general questions. What are we able to have running water and drainage? Would that have to go underneath the booth floor?
Great question. So it'll be part of the utilities order form that you'll submit when it's available September 23rd in the Resource Center. But yes, so it's water, air, gas, electrical, depending on what you need in your space to showcase any of your equipment. So it's really based on kind of what those needs are. In Orlando, traditionally, you can have electrical and water come from the ceiling or from the floor. But then, of course, if you're having a company or having Freeman design your booth space, it will be important to mention where those utility needs are so you can, prevent any tripping hazards or preventing some of those thick cords from sticking out of your space.
Okay. How about one more? What about the service aisle? If we match, for example, one yellow and one green, do I have a wall in the middle of our booth?
Great question.
Do
So
you,
if you're
hopefully?
no, this is a great question. So if you're looking for an inline space on the floor plan, meaning you want one booth, two booths, but they're all in a line, you might have neighbors on either side of you, that service aisle is going to stay there because then all inline booths will need space to put any kind of power, any kind of thing that you have. So it's not taking up all this space in your actual booth. That's why that service aisle is there. It's really for inline booth needs. But if you're looking for an island space or a peninsula, when you combine those spaces, the service aisle goes away. So really for island spaces and peninsulas, you're designing the utilities to really be kind of under the floor or coming from the ceiling. So it's just designed differently, but really the service aisles are there so that people that have smaller booths are not having to give away so much of their space that they paid for with the utility lines, which we know can take up space.
Okay. Do you recommend discussing our plan before the appointment, or is it during that time?
I always recommend discussing in advance, and especially because you might have a plan with your team and say, we want to go in this area or this area or this area. So you have three choices, but then an hour before, oh snap, all those choices are taken. So you want to make sure again that you're with your team, you have a plan, because even if a few minutes before you say, oh man, someone just took that spot I really wanted, you can still come into your appointment and you have an idea. You've at least been monitoring the floor plan, and we can help make the best recommendation, again, depending on what you're looking for.
Okay, I'll take one more here. For larger exhibitors, is it possible to have one direct point of contact with the decorator and the Orange County Convention Center?
It absolutely is. With our show, of course, you have your trade show contact. That's the contact that we often share with our Freeman team, with our utilities team, so that they have all of our contacts on file when you're placing orders. So, absolutely. And if you're thinking about you want one contact from the utilities team or from the Freeman team, now again, that may just vary. The NAFEM show is a very big show, so we make sure that we have at least 2 to 3 designated contacts with Freeman and with the utilities team. Reason being is that we want to make sure it's not one person getting back to 500 companies. We want to make sure everyone's getting answers, getting their needs met, but we make sure that it is multiple people so that you can get those questions addressed.
Okay, thank you. A reminder, this is all going to be posted on the NAFEM Show website, the whole recording. So if you need to refer back to it, it'll be there. If you want to share it with members of your team that are going to be helping to facilitate the space, have them go through it. Be on the lookout. We're going to be sending out resource videos about how to access and use the Exhibitor Resource Center on September 14th. So those will be coming to your trade show contacts. If you haven't already, signed up for the next webinar, which is going to take place November 10th at 2 p.m. Central. And that one is everything you need to know as a first-time exhibitor, which even if you're not a first-time exhibitor, it's really 2 years is a long time. It's a great refresher on all things. So, but particularly, definitely, if you're a first-time exhibitor, join that one. But all of them are out there. So even beyond November 10th, you can sign up for them all now. And I think that's it. Thank you
Thank
all
you,
for
everyone.
joining us,
Have a
and
great rest of your day, everybody.
good luck at Space Draw next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.